Chapter 7 deals with costs. So far what we've seen in the previous chapter is a description of what firms can do. So the production function tells us what a firm can produce given the inputs. What we ultimately want to understand is what a firm will do. And in order to do that, we need to understand the firm's costs. So what we're going to need is this idea of a cost function. Now, economists measure costs differently than businesses or accounting firms would. That's because the economic cost of a decision includes the value of the best foregone opportunity. So we call this the opportunity cost. So we'll get into a little more detail about what that is. So an outline of this chapter is that we're first going to understand what I mean by things like opportunity cost, so what the economic cost of a decision is. So we're going to talk about how to measure costs and how to account for both the explicit and implicit costs of a decision. Then we'll talk about the short-run cost. So how do you minimize the cost by picking the right amount of variable input when the long-run input is fixed at a given level. Then we'll talk about long-run cost minimization. Then we'll talk about how costs are lower in the long run than they are in the short run. In other words, to produce the same thing in the long run, it would cost you less than it would in the short run. And finally, we'll talk a little bit about how the cost of producing multiple goods varies from the cost of producing those goods separately. So that's a quick outline of what we're going to do in this chapter.